So to recap on that video that I just made, I was born in downtown Los Angeles, and I was raised in downtown LA, where the public schools down there, they don't really focus much on um how do you say non-rehabilitation. One thing that I noticed that down there they have a lot of extracurricular activities. Something that these schools, well, at least during the time when I was going to school out here, didn't have. And if they did have, it was very limited. So I went to school in downtown Los Angeles. And out there, there's not many brown kids, you know. You might have a couple brown kids like here and there, maybe like probably like one or two in every class. But for the most part, they have a light complexion, kind of like mine. You know, they have a lighter complexion. So for us, we don't. It's very competitive down there in terms of academics, in terms of popularity and things like that. But for the most part, down there, they're not really like aggressive. They're not really violent. They're not really out there promoting violence and criminal activity and criminal mindsets. There are some kids down there that do get led astray and they like adopt that sort of mentality. But for the most part, down there, the teachers teach you about how being a criminal is wrong. You know, they have the funding for that. They have the funding to sway the opinion when it's being when the narrative is going in a negative direction, which is something they don't have here. Like they don't have funding out here to like teach kids that being a criminal is bad or whatever. So I went to elementary school down the street here on the street that I live. It's probably like a 5 minute walk, and down there I would constantly be attacked because I wasn't Mexican or because I wasn't brown, you know. And um, when I came here, seeing the way that everyone dresses and the way that they carry themselves, we're talking about kids like in the fifth grade, third grade. Like these kids dressed like vandals, like baggy pants, big shirts, bald heads, things like that. You never really saw that in downtown, you know. You did have some times where you did see that, but for the most part, the kids down there aren't dressing like that, you know. But that's neither here nor there. Going to that school and being ostracized because I'm too white, or being ostracized because I don't want to like join their little gang affiliated bullshit or whatever. That put me in a difficult situation because I didn't fit in mainly because I wasn't Mexican and I wasn't brown, you know. So I kind of just stayed to myself for a little bit. And I found solace in watching television. I found solace in drawing. I found solace in doing some of the after school activities that they offered at the school because I just didn't resonate with most of these people. You know, I didn't have that connection like I had in downtown Los Angeles. You know, when I was in downtown Los Angeles, I was a very popular kid. You know, I wasn't the richest kid. I wasn't the most wealthiest kid. You know, but I had really good connections with people, and people were reliant on me. You know, people were reliant on me to help them with their homework or to you know, give them some advice or whatever. But other than that, let's skip forward. Let's move a couple years down the road. So now that I graduated from that elementary school or that primary school, I went to this school, which was a what kind of school was it? It was a magnet school, and you know we would have to wear uniforms a lot. We would have to wear uniforms every day of the week, and for me, it was very difficult to find uniforms that were good for me. You know, it was very one thing I noticed is that a lot of the kids out there at that magnet school, they were very they were into having the best stuff. Like who has the best backpack or who has the best shoes, best hat or what, whatever. And I remember I remember me not fitting in at that school either because most of the kids that got transferred from this school, this primary school, ended up going to that school, and you know, I would get bullied for being poor and not having the best stuff. But I will also get ostracized because I also wasn't Mexican, and you know, there's always that. That's the thing about these communities around here, is that if you're not Mexican, like they basically treat you like you don't belong. You know, like they're basically like fuck off. You know, if you're white or if you're anything other than that, or if you're not brown, they they basically tell you like fuck off. You know, so I ended up leaving that school after seventh grade. After I think it was seventh or eighth grade, I ended up leaving that school. I went back to and then I ended up going to this middle school. This middle school that's the middle school that I was talking about earlier, Gompers Middle School. So in that school, um, it was horrible. That school compared to the other one, uh, incomparable. You know, huge contrast. Taggings on the bathroom, taggings on the desks, a lot of graffiti everywhere. Just the whole school is just a bunch of graffiti everywhere. So I got to that school, and then most of the popular kids, most of the popular kids out here are either they're either grouped up with the black people, which would make them popular black kids or whatever. And then you have the popular Mexican kids, which would group them and also in another group as the popular Mexican kids. And the popular Mexican kids, they would tell each other different like they would know what was going on in the campus. They would know what's going on with this person or that person or whatever. So they started to notice that I wasn't really hanging out with anyone. Even in the magnet school, the magnet middle school that I went to, I never really hung out with like a certain group. I was mainly just by myself. But being out here in this middle school, they started to notice that I was always by myself, that I didn't really have a group that I belonged with or whatever. So then one of the popular kids, or one of the kids that hung out with the other popular kids, he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, we've been talking about you, and it's being said that you're pretty flagrant, you're pretty flamboyant, and it's." He was like, "That's all right if you're like that or whatever." And I ended up finding that interesting, because at the time I didn't think much of it. I didn't think like, oh, this guy thinks that I'm fucking gay or some shit. Because I was just a fucking kid, you know. I was just a kid, just like any other fucking kid at school, trying to get through with the day. And it wasn't until years later that I put two and two together and put the pieces together, and I was like, oh, that guy thought I was something that I'm not, you know. So then he introduced me to my sister's husband's boyfriend. I mean, my sister's husband's brother. And, when I first met him, I thought he was cool. I was like, oh, this guy's cool. This guy's not really like looking for trouble. He's not like, he dresses like a gang member, like every other Mexican kid that I've ever came across in this fucking forsaken community in this neighborhood. But one thing I noticed about him is that he was more upbeat. Like he wasn't aggressive. He wasn't like one of those other popular kids that was like, oh, I'm the top dog, and I have to always be like all aggressive and mad, and nobody can fuck with me, you know. And I was like, oh, this guy is pretty chill, and it never occurred to me or ever crossed my mind like, oh, this guy's probably fucking gay, you know. So then I started hanging out with him for a bit, and then as I was hanging out with him, you know, I started to notice things that like were a red flag, like sometimes he would hug other kids, like not, he would like hug mainly just guys, you know, just other kids, but they were men, like they were boys, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, oh well, he must get along pretty good with a lot of people. Like he must be popular too, you know. It never crossed my mind that I don't that this guy fucking is fucking gay or whatever. And I had a couple of girls that were interested in me at the time, and a couple of girls that I was also interested in during that time. There's this one girl that I had met in English class at that time, and you know, her and I ended up making out, and it didn't really go anywhere. But then I met this other girl in PE, and she was really cute. You know, she was like really beautiful. But you know, during that time, you know, this guy, I don't know how, but he found out where I lived. You know, and then he started showing up. He started hanging out after school with me or whatever. And then, you know, after a couple of weeks or whatever, you know, this guy ended up like taking advantage of me. You know, like I was just 13 years old. I didn't think like, oh, my life is in danger. I didn't think like, oh, going to school is dangerous. You know, at that time I was in like, you know, I have no reason not to believe that this school isn't safe for me to be here. You know, and you know, eventually I ended up finding out that this guy fucking likes men or whatever. So he ended up taking advantage of me. I think the reason that he took advantage of me was because I wasn't like one of those aggressive people. You know, I wasn't out there like, oh, I'm the top dog or I'm a manly man or I'm like, you know, I was raised and taught that you don't have to be masculine all the time. Like, you don't have to show that side of you to prove to people that you like women or whatever. So, you know, that this guy ended up taking advantage of me. He ended up molesting me. He ended up sexually assaulting me. And I think he did that because he felt comfortable where, you know, in a way he felt comfortable like, oh, now this guy won't do anything about it. Like, look at him. Like, he's too nice. He's a nice kid. Like, he doesn't get into any altercations or whatever. And I think that's what prompted him to say, well, let me just take advantage of him, of his good nature. Let me take advantage of his good nature and, you know, do something to him that I'm not supposed to do. So after that incident, you know, I ended up going, I ended up like, because I was still going to the same school as him. And I ended up like, I stopped talking to him completely, you know. Like I would avoid him at school. I would purposely stay after school and do extracurricular activities after school just so I won't have to see him, just so I won't have to be near him or next to him, you know. And I don't know how he found out. Someone told him that I was staying after school doing extracurricular activities. Someone told him that I was in the classroom that he had never been to during the time that I was doing extracurricular activities. And I'm here thinking like, how the fuck did you find me? Like like how like how can you not take a hint that I don't fucking like you? That I don't want to be near you. Like, just the thought of you fucking disgusts me. Just thinking about you makes me want to throw up. Me just thinking about you makes me want to fucking kill myself, you know? So then this guy, this kid, wouldn't take no for an answer, you know? I guess he was scared that I was gonna say something about what he did to me. I think he was afraid that I was gonna like tell a teacher or tell someone like an adult about what he did to me. And, you know, he should have been scared. You know, he should have felt like, oh, I fucked up. I shouldn't have done that to this person, you know. And instead of leaving me alone, you know, he kept on fucking following me. He kept on insisting and shit, you know. So then, he started to come to my house here, uh, asking for me. And then my mom would tell me like, "Oh, someone came asking for you today," and this and that. And my mom was like, "Oh, you should go out and hang out. You've been spending a lot of time in school, and you've been spending a lot of time indoors. You should go out there and hang out with friends or whatever." Meanwhile, I'm like, "No, I don't want to go out. I fucking hate this community. I hate this place that I live in. Why the fuck would you send me back out there to deal with all this bullshit?" So, eventually I ended up graduating from, I didn't graduate from that middle school, but I ended up passing, you know, with really bad grades. So this guy wouldn't leave me alone, right? So then I went to high school. And in high school, I met this girl. And this girl, I ended up dating this girl or whatever. And this guy ended up going to another school, to a different school, you know. And I was like, finally, like I got rid of him. There's no way this person is ever gonna follow me. There's no way that I'm ever gonna see this person anymore. This person is in the past. I went through a lot of depression. I went through this whole isolation phase. Finally, I can get a peace of mind. But no, that wasn't the case. Because when spring and summer came around, this guy came back looking for me. He came back and he was like, "Oh, you know, is so and so here?" And then my mom would tell me, like, "Oh, someone came by looking for you," or whatever, you know. And none of my family members knew what this person did to me. This is my sister's husband's brother, by the way. You know, nobody at the time knew that this person had sexually molested me or sexually assaulted me. So I had to live with that shit. I had to live with the fact that that happened to me by myself. Just imagine that. A kid, an innocent kid that knows nothing about the world, that knows nothing about evil or how evil works or how evil people can be. This kid that is literally, like, I had no idea of the evils of people. Like, I didn't realize, because I was just a kid, dude. I was an innocent fucking kid. I didn't I didn't know that people could be so fucking evil that they'll fucking take advantage of somebody sexually against their will without their consent and just go fucking insane, you know? And then people are like, "Oh, well, why don't you like gay people?" What? You still gonna you're still going to sit there and ask me why I don't like gay people or the LGBTQ people when this gay person, this gay kid assaulted me when I was a kid. For a very long time I felt like my innocence was taken from me because it was. I was this gullible kid that didn't know anything about the world. That my parents never taught me, like, hey, be careful because there's people out there who want to rape you. There's people out there who want to take advantage of you sexually. My parents were never like that, because I had no need to feel that way. I had no need to feel like, oh, maybe there are people out there who want to harm me and take away my innocence. I wasn't thinking like that, dude. So, time goes by, and this guy's still insisting and insisting of being there, you know. And then eventually, this thing happened where someone died. Someone died here in this community. And that prompted them, his family and all that, they ended up leaving from this community, you know? And when they left, I was kind of like relieved. I was like, finally, these people are gone. There's no need for them to, you know, there's no way for them to reach me anymore. There's no way for them to contact me anymore. Like I'm okay, you know. And I dealt with that trauma for some time. You know, I just felt defeated. No one came to my aid. No one helped me. No police officers got involved and said, "Hey, maybe something is up with this kid. Maybe this kid is acting up because something went on." You no teachers, no alarms were raised with the teachers. No police officers were like, "Hey, are you okay? Did something happen to you?" You know, and this one time they did ask me that. This I'm not sure if it was a police officer or if it was a teacher or a counselor. It was someone that had asked me, and like they were like, "Oh, hey, did you go through something? Like, did someone take advantage of you sexually?" And I was afraid. I was afraid to answer that. I was afraid to tell them like, yeah, this happened to me. This and that happened to me. And living with that fear, it's traumatizing. You know, it's like, who can you turn to? If the community that you live in isn't safe for you to live there, and you can't really tell anyone about what happened to you, you you go through this phase of self implosion where you implode all your emotions, you know? And like I said, I went through this isolation phase where I wouldn't go out. My family would invite me to like go out to places. They'll be like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna go out to eat," or they'll be like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna, we're gonna go here, or we're gonna go there." And I would just be so depressed, and I would be like, I'm okay. I'm gonna stay here. I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to be left alone. Just let me watch TV, or let me draw, or let me just do my homework or whatever. And, you know, going through that as a kid, not knowing much about the world or how evil the world can be, it really cements the fact that, like, you don't live in the place that you think is okay to live at, you know. And my sister's husband's brother, he has a wife now. He has a wife, he has a kid. I don't know if she knows that he's gay. I don't know if she knows that, but if she did, she probably wouldn't be with him, you know. But that's not for me to decide whether to tell them or not. You know, that's up to him to tell them. So now that now that this person has become entangled with my family, you know, my family is like they're basically like we don't fuck with them, you know, because I let them know they just found this out a couple years ago, and even this year of what he did to me. And right now they feel like, oh, he can't be trusted. They feel like he's a rapist or that he's a sexual predator because he is. He's a sexual deviant who places his will upon innocent people, and that's just the way he is, I guess. But other than that, I don't, like I said, I don't like living here in this community. I don't like having to wake up and be reminded of the past and be reminded of everything that has happened to me and all the traumas that I've been through and all the bullshit that I've had to deal with. Like, I wake up and I'm like, I fucking wish that I was somewhere else but here, you know? Sometimes I wake up and I'm just like, I wish that I was somewhere else, you know? I wish that I lived somewhere other than here, you know? And, living here, all it brings me is just trauma, the reminder of the trauma that I went through, the reminder of what happened to me when I was little, the reminder of all these things that transpired in the past. I've been living in this house, for a really long time. Really, really long time. And every time I try to leave, my family's chaos follows me. And they try to reel me back in. And they're like, maybe they feel guilt. Maybe they feel that they didn't do enough to protect me. Whatever it is, whatever the case, maybe, I just can't deal with it anymore. You know, I don't have the money to move. I don't have a job. You know, I don't have any funds so that I can live somewhere else. I don't own this house. No, none of my family members own this house. We're just renting here. But believe me, if I had the funds, if I had the money, if I had the stability to move from this place, I would I would move in a heartbeat. I would move in a heartbeat and I would leave this place. You know, I would leave this place and never look back. I would never talk to anyone remotely close to this place. You know, and it's It's really traumatizing to be able to be having to go through this, you know. And I don't I don't like being here, you know. I've lived here for so long, and you know, none of this has brought any progression to my life. None of this has progressed my life in a positive way. None of it. You know, the only place where I find solace right now is on my devices. You know, I go on my device, I learn a few things here and there. I don't talk to people around here. I don't associate myself with people around here. You know, why would I? This place tormented me. This place showed me that this environment that I live in, this community that I've lived in for so long, it's not safe. You know, it's not a safe place to be in. And this entire city should probably be torn down, you know, torn down, burned to the ground. Maybe build a couple of malls, some buildings, probably. Just get rid of everyone here, you know? Just make it into like a shopping center, make it into like a mall or some sort of tourist attraction, you know, because it's not conducive to live here. It's not beneficial. You know, people often like to say, "Oh, you know, diversity is so good. You know, diversity brings a lot of equality and things like this. Diversity is a positive movement for all humans." No, no, it's not. I've experienced diversity firsthand, and I can tell you that it's not. It is neither a solution to racism, nor is it beneficial to anyone. You know who benefits the most from diversity? Rich people. They benefit from that shit. Why? Because they don't have to live here. They don't have to deal with any of this. They could live in their own fucking gated communities in their private fucking properties and promote all this shit all they want. But to actually live in a place like this, no, they won't. It's not, you know, they would never. But I'll leave it at that because I'm getting really annoyed and tired right now, and I don't I don't have the energy to talk about all this. You know, I just wanted to sit here and talk with you and share my experience. I'm 30 years old. I just wanted to be here and talk about my experiences. You know, since I was a kid and all the things that I've been through since growing up here. You know, um, you know, this is also another thing that my sister's husband's family was doing is that they were drugging me. You know, they were using I'm not sure what type of drug it was, but it's this drug that's like it makes you hallucinate this reality that's not there. And I'm not talking about like I don't know what drug it is. I'll probably have to do some more research on what it is. But they're not sorry that they did all that shit to me. You know, that they forced me to take these drugs or gave me these drugs without my consent, they're sorry that they got caught. For the longest time, they're like, oh, this person is not going to know that we've been drugging them and interrogating them for information. There's no way. There's no way that this person would ever find out, you know. But uh, I like to thank the people that have helped me to figure out what has been happening or what has happened to me in the past. And I didn't get the help from law enforcement, you know. Law enforcement could give two shits about what I went through. No police officer has ever came up to me and said, "Oh, hey, did you know that this has been going on in your community? That it has been happening to you and other people in your community?" Like, no fucking police officer has ever came up to me and said, no law enforcement has ever came up to me and said, "Oh, this has been going on for a really long time. They've been drugging you. They've been saying lies about you. I'm here to tell you, no." It took me, it took my own will to find people that had my best interests at heart. And for them to be like, hey, um, we're actually here to tell you what's been going on. Since no one in your community wants to tell you what's been going on, we're here to tell you what's been going on. So, like I said, that police station down the street definitely needs to be investigated. It's definitely should be shut down to the ground permanently. They shouldn't. Whoever's running that police station definitely does not deserve to be in their position at all. Um, you know, what else? What else can I say? That's pretty much it, man. You know, I've I've done so much. A lot of people have done so much for me in terms of helping me progress in life and giving me positive feedback. And you know, we'll see where it goes from here. We'll see how things go now that everyone is aware of what's been going on. Another topic that I wanted to touch on real fast before I go is the fact that um, so a lot of hard drugs are illegal here in California. Drugs like cocaine, meth, heroin, but those drugs you can still get those drugs here. You know, you go down the street from somewhere around here, you'll find meth, you'll find cocaine, you'll find heroin. So that lets me know that all these so-called laws against paraphernalia or substances, they're all subjective. They're subjective, and you know, if these drugs keep persisting in this community, you know, that gives the people the right to sue not only the county but possibly the entire state of California for false advertisement or for creating laws that are not being they're not upheld. I'm not sure how you say it, but these laws that these local officials pass, they don't mean shit if these drugs are just coming in and out all the fucking time. These laws don't mean shit at all. And you know, something needs to be done because people are running rampant drugging other people against their will, against their consent. And then what? We're supposed to just pretend that that's not what's happening. We're supposed to just, you know, stand aside and just be like, oh, well, you know, like no, that's not a viable solution to any of this. But like I said, I could care less about this community. I care less about the environment that I live in right now. I'm just making it aware because I went through that. You know, I'm shedding light and I'm exposing that side of this community that I live in because I went through that. It was done to me. You know, if they would have never gotten me involved into all this bullshit, then I wouldn't have a need to expose these corrupt officials. I wouldn't have the need to expose these so-called law enforcement. You know, it's not something. It's not my job to correct you when you're not doing your job. You know, my job is to look out for my well-being, and if my well-being is being threatened, and you're preventing me from protecting my well-being, then what other choice do you have? You have no other choice than to speak about these things, than to talk about these things. You have no other choice but to expose these people for what they are. So that's all I wanted to talk about. Um, there's a lot of content on my channel that you should probably watch. There's a lot of really good stuff on there. A lot of good conversations with Pegasus that, I'm gonna do another conversation. I'm gonna do another upload with Pegasus pretty soon, and it's gonna be quite interesting. You know, you're definitely not gonna want to miss it. So I'll leave it at that, and it was nice talking with you. It's always nice to vent and say what I need to say. And I'm glad people tune in to watch and hear what I have to say. It's good because that helps me. That helps me out, and it helps other people, and it sheds light and awareness into things that people have gone through, similar things that people have gone through. You know. All right. So good night. Take care, and I just want to add that today is Thursday, April the 3rd. It is 9:39 p.m. and today is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. I always gotta do a little. I always have to add the date in there because then people start wondering if I actually uploaded this at the correct date that it's uploaded. So, yeah. Goodbye, you guys.